It's definitely no secret that since World of Warcraft's release, it was and still is one of the biggest games in modern gaming, and at one point reached 12 million active subscriptions. However, as time went on, many players moved on to different things, but when 2019 came around, we saw the release of WoW Classic, which ultimately brought back hundreds of thousands of players. Now, as a retail player, I did give it a try, and well, was never really interested. I just found it to be far too slow for my liking. However, with World of Warcraft's 20th anniversary, we saw the re-release of WoW Classic. And well, my friend Lev, who happens to be one of, if not the best player in WoW Classic, invited me to join his guild. And well, how can I pass up an opportunity like that? In case you haven't watched any of my previous videos, then I would like to introduce you to my character, Barton Sniff. Last time, we focused on getting the coveted Whirlwind Axe, which we managed to get by definitely soloing it and not asking someone from my guild to kill it for me. Now, obviously, being a new WoW Classic player, I ask a lot of questions. As I level up, I very often ask what the best way to build threat is, or what the best way to deal damage is, or whatever the question may be. But the answer always seems to come back to one answer: Whirlwind. So that is the goal for today. Unlock Whirlwind and finally be able to deal solid damage instead of just spamming Sunder Armor on every mob that I see. Logging in for the day, we were sitting at a pretty low little level 30 with our quest log loaded up with every single quest ready for Gnomergon. Now this was a dungeon I sort of knew was going to be rough, not because of the sheer difficulty, but rather because I didn't know the route, and I knew from experience in retail that this dungeon is huge, and I had never been in 90% of it since in retail you only target a select few of the bosses. But before we entered, we of course needed to take down TechBot and steal his memory core for the quest. Once we had entered, I was of course familiar with everything so far, but it really only took about 3 mobs before we started moving in a direction that I had never been in before, heading down a strange staircase and picking up even more quests. Now the first boss we took on was actually a familiar one, being the Vicious Fallout, who I believe is still part of the dungeon to this day, and he did drop a pair of blue cloth boots, which of course is not for me. So, moving on. We slowly started making our way to the next boss, picking up as many quest items as I possibly could along the way, until we reach Electrocutioner 6000, which did drop a one-handed sword, which I did happen to win the roll on, so that's kinda epic, I suppose. And as we were clearing more trash, we accidentally did the Gnomergon special, and 15,000 mobs appeared behind us. I'm still not entirely sure what we did to pull them, but it was probably me, and we all died. After coming back to life and clearing up the rest of the trash, we had finally made our way to the last boss of the dungeon, which is of course Meg Junior Thermoplug, and we got it down no problem. Did we miss any bosses? Yeah, probably, but to be honest, it was fine, since we were now level 31 and had a gazillion quests to turn in. No better feeling than having 10 quests ready to turn in. And that's also where I decided to log off for the night, since it was starting to get late. When logging in the next day, I had completely forgotten about a very important thing to do at level 30, and that was to get Sweeping Strikes, an absolute must ability for warriors that would stand as one of my primary abilities in AoE situations. So we had done Gnomergon, but what now? Well, I asked Lev what the move is, and well, he told me that I could jump straight into Razer Fan Crawl. Now, Razer Fan Crawl only has 2 quests, and one of them was located in Feralis, and I couldn't find a way to get there efficiently, which meant that I had to run. And I was alright with that, since I knew that I would want to quest in Thousand Needles at some point. Yeah, looking back on this, it was like a straight hour of nothing but running, but we grabbed the needed quest, and it turns out I was missing a few flight paths along the way, and I would have to... And well, it may have taken another 30 minutes, but we were finally standing outside of the dungeon and were ready to go. Now, Razer Fan Crawl luckily is a dungeon that I am familiar with. Is it my favourite dungeon? It's like the definition of the word fine. We made our way to the first boss, which was Agam Thorn Curse, and we did do it in one nice big pool. Loot-wise, absolutely nothing dropped, but it was fine since there would be a ton of other opportunities to get some loot. Next was across the room to the next boss, Death Speaker Jargba, and once again we got it down no problem at all. The loot this time was just a crappy cloth green. Thirdly was Overlord Ramtusk, who did drop a two-handed axe, but of course we don't need that since we got this lovely whirlwind axe. Second to last, we went after Agathelos. Where the hell do they get these names from? Then of course, the last boss, which was Chargla Razorflank, who actually did drop his shield. And that was the entire of Razer Fan Crawl. And you know what? It wasn't too bad. I had a lot more fun doing it than I had originally thought that I would. And hey, we could now turn in the Feralis quest. My god, I didn't realize how much running I did that day. Well, with that out of the way, we had successfully completed 2 dungeons, and we're now level 32. But that's not enough, since we wouldn't be unlocking Whirlwind until level 36, which means we've got some questing to do. And well, after thinking about it for an entire 13 seconds, I decided to quest for a bit in these Shimmering Flats, since I had never been there before, never in retail or in classic, so I was kind of looking forward to it. Okay, great start. The only downside I experienced whilst I was here is that there were a lot of horde running around that were significantly higher level than me. But looking past that fact, this was honestly a really cool zone to explore, and that might seem stupid since it's literally just a flat plain, but that's what I think made it so cool. I haven't really seen any other zone like this. It's really a perfect mix between being really pretty and having a slight eeriness to it. Anyway, I filled up the quest log with as much as I could to keep me busy for a while, and it was really nothing out of the ordinary. We had to kill a load of basilisks, which was pretty good for leveling up my skinning, and it was the same story with the scorpions. We also had to murder a lot of turtles in order to collect their shells. And lastly, we needed to pick up 30 rocket cart parts. And I mean, it was as simple as it gets. Just walk up to one of the junk piles and pick it up. And usually with this type of quest, there's a severe lack of spawns and you're left searching for hours. But this time they were in such massive abundance. I mean, there was one more quest where we had to kill vultures and take their bones, but I ended up skipping that quest because I couldn't seem to find any of the vultures. And pretty quickly, we had completed everything that there was to do here, which kind of left me in a spot where I was too high of a level for certain areas, but too low for others. So I spent the next 4-ish hours running around random zones collecting loose quests that I had earlier skipped. Like I went over into Stranglethorn Vale for a bit and did a couple quests there, and then over to Hillsbrad Foothills for a while. And after finishing up all of the loose ends, I was sitting at level 34, which meant that I was now high enough to start questing in another zone that I had never been in before, and that was Desolus. Aesthetically, it really wasn't too different from the Shimmering Flats apart from the fact that it has hills, and I quite liked the quests here. There was a fun set of quests where we have to enter into this castle-like thingy that was absolutely swarmed with orcs, and you know, I quite like that. We also had to run around and collect centaur ears because why not, I guess. And there was one of these quests where you have to go looking for a single item that has a very small chance of dropping, and I was very lucky and ended up getting it on the first try, so no complaints there. And I think I lost some of the footage, but at some point I headed to Arathi Highlands and started completing the elite quests that were there with a group that I had found. We needed to kill a couple of mini bosses for their heads, the first one being Marez's head, who we did get down nice and easy. However, when it came to getting Otto's head, we actually died on the first attempt, but after actually using our brains, we did end up killing them by fearing one of them first. It only took around an hour to get all of them completed, and by then we were so close to level 36, and then for some reason I stopped recording. But I was so close, in fact it was a simple case of me exploring a new place to get the XP. I hope you all enjoyed watching the video because I enjoyed making it. I always do. And just before the video ends, I just wanted to say I hope you all had a nice Christmas and holidays. I did end up taking a few days break, but we are back. And I will probably end up posting even more regularly than I normally do going into the New Year's. Anyways, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you all later.